Dennis Kucinich has a new book out. The Division of Light and Power is the title of it. I'm so happy to have him back on the program. It's been quite a while. Dennis, welcome back to the program. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Tom, it's been a long time, but I'm just delighted to have the chance to be with you.
You know, I was looking through some old pictures the other day. On 10 years ago, on my 60th birthday, 10 years ago last month, all my family was in Portland. Louise and I were in Washington, D.C., and my birthday party was with you and Elizabeth and Ellen Ratner. we had dinner together, and I have a picture of it.
So Elizabeth sent her best.
Yeah. So anyhow, it's great talking to you again. You're right; it has been a long time, and it's been too long. So tell us about the Division of Light and Power. This has to do with the time that you were the mayor of Cleveland, as I recall, right?
Well, the story opens when I was a councilman. I was just elected, and by the way, you know, I'm on video. I don't know if you are. I can hear you though.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. The story opens, Tom, with a blackout in downtown Cleveland in 1969 at Christmas time, and I had just been elected to city council. All of a sudden, the lights are off in downtown Cleveland. I called Muni Light, which the title name is the Division of Light and Power, and asked, what's going on? It's, you know, Christmas time, the lights are off. And the guy tells me, well, we have a boiler down, and CEI, which was a private company, is shafting us because two things are happening. One is they wouldn't give the city an interconnect, which would allow the city to have a backup and connect to the national grid. That was number one. Number two, they were working behind the scenes to block any repairs in city council, any repairs that the system needed. So that moment there with that blackout is where the book opens. And the reader then goes through the experience that I had in learning about why the lights were really going off. And it takes them on a trip through corporate espionage, sabotage, price fixing, through organized crime, assassination plots, bank co-conspiracy. A wild, wild ride, and it's all true, and it's all heavily documented.
It's extraordinary. This is, at its core, what happens, is it not, when what should be considered part of the commons, what should be the stuff that we all own and manage for our own benefit, gets taken over by very wealthy, very powerful special interests, corporate or billionaire interests or hedge fund interests, and gets run purely for profit as opposed to for the public benefit.
Well, privatization is a racket. Mm-hmm. Well, people end up selling, usually at a discount, something they've already paid for with their tax dollars or with their rates. And later on, when they have to buy the service again, they're paying for it at a markup. So, privatization during that time that I write about, was rampant in the electric utility industry. There was conglomerations going on where people were picking off these municipal systems. I list dozens of them at the beginning of the book, and there was one that the utility monopolies didn't get, and that was the one in Cleveland that that was the story of the book. And let's face it, it's all about being able to charge as much for a utility service as you can and get away with it. And in Cleveland, we had two utilities providing electricity, one private, the other one public. The public one provided service at rates that were 20% cheaper. I mean, it's no brainer which one you want. That's why the private utility was trying to put it out of business. And it's one of the dirtiest stories you'll ever hear. I mean, in terms of the corruption that was involved in the
Give me an example.
Community. Well, okay. The blackouts. This is almost a spoiler alert, but let me tell you, there's so many things that happens in the book.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that actually the more you give away of a book, the more likely people are to buy it because they want to be able to get the juicy details.
So the blackouts are occurring on the Muni Light system. Well, a federal investigation later on and antitrust lawsuit both produced documentation that proved that blackouts were being created on the Muni system by the private utility, the Cleveland Electric Illuminating Company, and then they would go into Muni-Light neighborhoods with sales contracts saying, look, it doesn't look like your utility's working so well, sign up with us, and we'll top it off by giving you free wiring. I mean, this was like a mob.
How are they sabotaging the publicly owned utility?
They were doing it two ways. One, through blocking repairs in the city council, and two, they were, when the city needed power, because remember, it couldn't fix its generators because the repairs to the generators were being blocked by the lobbyists for the private utility in the Cleveland City Council. So the city's weak. And then what would happen is when the city needed a transfer of power, the transfer of power was operated in such a way as to deliberately cause a blackout on the city system. And then when the city had to reconnect to its own system, they created a blackout again. And that's just Tom. So, I mean, I'm giving you one example, and then later on, the largest bank in Ohio gave me an ultimatum saying on December 15, 1978, either I would agree to sell our city's municipal electric system to this utility monopoly at a cut rate, or the bank would put the city of Cleveland in default on loans I hadn't even taken out. So the bank had a financial interest in the utility. They were business partners, but they were also they had common business interests. And what happened is that the city was thrown into default. I made a commitment that, look, I'll go to the people and we'll get an income tax passed and get us out of default, pay off these defaulted notes on loans I hadn't taken out. The bank said, okay. The people passed a tax and they still kept us in default until I left office. Wow. I mean, this happened in the United States of America, and it was a coup by a bank and utility monopoly. And the political system failed the people. The media failed the people. And, ultimately I had to make a decision whether I was going to sell or not. I said, no way, no how. And it ended up being, this is a one-of-a-kind story in America. However, the thematics of the book, I take people right into the political system, and a reader will recognize things that are happening in their own community where the public's being dealt out of discussions over major public decisions.
We're talking with former
private interests.
We're talking with former Congressman Dennis Kucinich. His new book, The Division of Light and Power, just a tour de force. Dennis, Congressman, what can people do to fight back against this kind of thing when it's happening in their town or their state? I mean, we just saw, the horrors of privatization of electricity, for example, in Texas. And we just have a minute here before we're going to hit a break.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I mean, I had a Pulitzer Prize winner who's looked at the book, and he said this book is going to be taught in political science classes far into the future. People need to get educated about the power systems, not just electricity, the political power systems in their own communities. And then they need to ask questions if something isn't fitting. They need to ask questions, and they need to raise hell. And that's exactly what I did, that took me into city council, that resulted in my journey into this corruption, and that resulted in my being elected mayor.
Yeah, it's an absolutely extraordinary story. The new book, The Division of Light and Power by Dennis J. Kucinich. Congressman, it is great talking to you again. Thanks so much for dropping by today.
Thanks, Tom. Book's on sale now.
The book's on sale now. You can find it wherever fine books are available. So check it out. Dennis Kucinich, The Division of Light and Power. Thank you, Dennis.